Our next guest is one of the most decorated athletes in the history of BYU. And he wrote this, so I'm going to try to get it right. Just kidding. We mentioned earlier that Kenneth Rooks is the reigning U.S. national champion in the steeplechase. Well, this man is a 9-time U.S. national champion, 5-time BYU All-American, was ranked the #1 steeplechase runner in the world in 1981, 82, and 85. It's our pleasure to welcome the Hall of Famer Henry Marsh to the Wise Guys, all the way from Twin Falls, Idaho. It's great to have you here.
It is so good to be here. It's like this is my BYU family. You know, I watch you guys, and you guys are masters. And I remember, Blaine, we were
there together at times. It was like you were like ruling the world when we were together.
But I remember running into you at the University of Washington football game. We were at the gym at the hotel working out together.
That's right.
But it's just like I've gone through these memories.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think I've been on a sports interview for 35 years.
Really?
Which is crazy.
Tonight's the night.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's so much fun because I watch Sports Nation every day, and it's so good that you guys found time for Pitta. You know, so.
I know, because like Jerem and Dennis have this thing going where they act like they actually really like each other, and that's it. But he goes, "Oh, sorry, we don't have time for Dennis." And
We always have time for Dennis.
And how about Henry coming down from Twin Falls? Elder Sikahema just bailed on us to come in on Zoom because he's got his birthday dinner, and Henry
all the way in Salt Lake.
Henry comes all the way down from Twin Falls and jumps in with us here in studio. I'm so pumped about having you here.
We got a lot of stories we want to dive into.
Oh my goodness! I started thinking about all these things that have happened, and there's so many things.
Let's start with the news of the day.
Okay.
And Kenneth Rooks finishes 10th in Budapest in the Worlds at the 3,000 steeplechase. When I interviewed you for a Deseret News article, you thought, you know what? He might be able to take 10th. And he did take 10th. How big of a deal is it?
Well, I mean, it's 10th in the world. That's not bad.
No.
Yeah, you know, so
that's something, right?
Highest finishing American in the World Championships. But you know, the most important thing is he now feels like he belongs. You have to experience it. It was his first international competition. You know what my first international competition was?
I think it was the Montreal Olympics.
Montreal Olympics, 76 right. Olympics, my very first one. And you know what place I came in?
10th.
10th.
Came in 10th.
And so it was the same thing, you know. The only difference was at the time I was only a second off the American record, and now the American record is down to 8 flat.
Yeah.
You know, the times have changed, and the shoes have made a tremendous difference. And
so he's over in Budapest. What's it like running in Budapest? Because you've done that.
I have run in Budapest. This is a brand new stadium. But, you know, internationally, when you compete in Europe, those stadiums and the people go crazy over track and field. It's much bigger deal over there than it is in the United States. It's one of the most popular events. And so, you know, the adrenaline. It's like 84 Olympics in Los Angeles with the Coliseum packed with people. You know, just the energy and the vibe and everything else is incredible. So, yeah, I saw Ed said that he felt like he maybe ran one race too many this year. The last one. Yeah, that's what he said. Desert News. I think it's a long season, but man, my hat is off to him. He's got a great future. You know, I went from 10th 5 years later. I was #1 in the world. He could, you know, I think he's got that kind of progression. What's impressed me was that he has made a big jump, and when they make a big jump, that's mean there's more to give. You know, it's not like he just barely broke some records and barely improved. He improved a lot. And when somebody improves a lot, you know there's more there.
And is steeplechase a sport where you do get better, a little bit better? It's not one of these things where, hey, when you're at 19, you're at your peak, right? This is something where he can continue to get better. He still is a senior in college. He's got another year left to compete in the Big 12. Can he do what you did over the next 5 years? Can he improve that much like you did?
Sure. The times are different today than when I was there, but absolutely, he's young. I peaked at 31.
31.
My fastest times was when I was 31 years old. 84 Olympics I was 80, and my last Olympics I was 34. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's got a long career in front of him, and he. I'm very, very impressed with him.
Did you think you would ever see an 8:03.53, which won it all today? Did you ever think you'd see that when you were running?
Well, they ran in the 76 Olympics 8:08 in that final.
Really?
Yeah, they broke the world record yard route from Sweden. So, yeah, you know, my fastest I got down to 8:09.
Okay.
So it was ballpark.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you surprised? Did you think the time would be lower today for the championship?
I thought they'd take off faster sooner.
Really?
It was slow the first few laps, which surprised me. And then they took off. But the world record was set 7:52 this year.
Wow.
And so, as I mentioned to you, I said, I think Kenneth has a good shot of making the finals. He's still got a big gap until he gets up to the medals, the podium part.
Right, 16 seconds at least.
Yeah.
You talked about a little bit. We're talking strategy. Hey, it went out faster than I thought, or it went out slower than I thought, because there is a lot of strategy in this. I was fascinated to hear Kenneth talk about in the U.S. Championships when he stumbled over that first barrier, that he came back and said, yeah, I thought of every scenario in my head. And if I had fallen early, this is what I was going to do. I was going to pace myself. If I fell late, this is what I was going to do. He had a plan for what he was going to do if he did that. And it became one of the most spectacular things I've seen in BYU sports ever. I mean, when you were preparing back in the day, did you think through it that much? Was there that much strategy to it? If I fall, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I'm glad that he did fall, because it gave me a chance to be with you guys.
Well, he had to get back up,
Exactly.
And then
He
he had
did
to win.
but otherwise, he said, well, let's talk to Henry about that. No, you don't plan. People that choke in athletics are the people that let negative thoughts in.
Yeah.
And if you let a negative thought in, it'll fulfill itself. And so in a way, I would never think I'm going to fall in a race. That was foreign to me, but I did. I hit a barrier, the last barrier in the World Championship, very first World Championships in '83 in Helsinki. I hit the last barrier.
Man.
And I was in second place when I hit it. And I fell in my very first steeplechase at BYU. We used to have the track inside LaVelle as our stadium.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
I remember those days.
Oh, yeah. And my very first steeplechase, I not only went in the water jump, I also hit a barrier. So, those things happen. I could tell you so many fall stories. In Olympic trials in Indianapolis, Jim Nance, my cohort at KSL, he was calling the race. I got tripped up with 200 meters to go in my semifinal, and you had to be in the top, I think it's 6 in order to make it to the final. Boy, you roll and you go quick,
Right.
But no, I don't think you ever. I think you prepare for the final of a race. Like, it's different taking that barrier to full sprint at the end of a race than it is during the race. And so you do those sort of things in practice. But I thought it was pretty unique for him to say, yeah, I was preparing for a fall early in the race and how I'd respond to it. That thought never entered my head.
I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
But it worked.
It'll be in the movie script.
Yeah, he didn't go out and then just try to catch everybody immediately. He had an idea in his mind. No, I just need to catch him by the last lap, and I'm going to beat him coming around.
Okay, so I talked, when he broke my record, Ed and I got on the phone with him. We did a conference call. I told him, I said, Kenneth, you need to go look at my '83 World Championship race. And in that race, in the middle of the race, they took off really hard, and I was literally 20 meters behind the pack.
Wow. Yeah.
And the commentators were making fun of me, saying, surely Marsh is not going to win today, and he's running like an amateur. But I knew my pace. And I was right on and spot on, and I got back up into the pace. And I talked to him about that, the exact same thing. And that's when he said, I went into Henry Marsh mode. That's
right.
That's what he was talking
so he's
about.
talking about, I'm not going to go get this back right now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to run my pace, and eventually I'll catch these guys.
And if you look at his splits in that race, he was 66 every lap except the lap he fell, and he was 69 on that. Yeah. He hit the exact pace he should have every lap, and 3 seconds he lost on the lap he fell.
Wow.
Quite
strategic.
a day.
Amazing.
Quite a day for Kenneth Rooks. BYU Hall of Fame runner Henry Marsh is on the Wise Guys. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. If you have a comment for Henry, let us know on the live stream, and we'll pass it on to him. Your running career actually began with a football story, and everyone's got football all over the place, and it's that time of year. But you're in Richardson, Texas. You're the quarterback of the Northridge Junior High School football team. What happened?
Oh, I got a story before that. When he asked me to speak, I said, it's football season. You don't want me speaking about track. It's football season.
We love it all.
So I'm going to talk about football today.
That's right.
So 6th grade, I grew up in Texas, in Dallas.
Which is the biggest football
And
state
so,
there is, right?
football's a religion there. At church, we had our headphones on and everything else. But 6th grade, I was on a team in Dallas. We were the city champions. and we played the city champions from Oklahoma City in the annual Turkey Bowl in Highlander Stadium in Highland Park, Dallas.
Sixth graders from Dallas are playing sixth graders from Oklahoma.
That's how they
Football's
do it.
big down there.
Yeah. I'm playing split end. And we punt the ball, and I go running down the field. The other team fumbled it. I picked it up, and I ran 34 yards the wrong way.
Oh, man.
I had 1 yard for a touchdown, and I had the nickname Wrong Way Marsh. I was crying.
Wrong Way Marsh.
I was crying at halftime and everything else, but we came back and won the game 7-0, so it turned out okay. but then I was playing quarterback. What you're referring to?
Ninth grade, you're
ninth grade quarterback. We had two LDS boys in my grade. We were the two quarterbacks. And my favorite play was the naked bootleg. But we were 0-10 that year.
Yeah.
Man.
Didn't work out.
Is that why you're like, forget football, I'm going to go run track?
So I set a city record in my first year that I blossomed in running that year.
So football was, after that season, it was like, you know what, there's got to be something else for me.
Yep.
And it was track.
It was track. I broke a city record. I thought that's what was, my family moved to Corpus Christi. And my 7th and 10th grade year, I was 7th in the state of Texas in the mile and in cross country. A hurricane blew down our house. My family moved to Hawaii. Oh, by the way, in Dallas, you know who some of my neighbors were?
Who?
Lee Johnson, Dave Fox.
Yeah.
And I just go start thinking about those family. Anyway, moved to Hawaii. And then, there wasn't the competition, so I stayed champion,
You were the only person running around the island?
Yeah. So anyway, there's lots of stories. I went to the National Junior Olympics, met Paul Cummings, who was going to go to BYU. He's a year ahead of me. And Paul was, unfortunately, he passed away.
Yes.
He drowned in Strawberry Lake, but amazing person and my hero and idol. But my graduating class at Punahou had 4 All-Americans at BYU.
Really?
Really? Who were the 4?
Okay, so here's your test.
Yeah, Punahou's a good school.
We had a class of 400, and out of that 400, 4
4
All-Americans at
BYU.
BYU, my graduating class. Mike Moss, baseball.
Yeah.
Marcus Conahilly, football. Malia Ane, volleyball. Ane family. Myself. So we had 4 in my graduating class.
How about that?
And the cool thing was...
That's why they don't like us over there in the island. By the way, if you're watching Wise Guys in the island, you know what we're talking about, because for a while there, all their athletes came over here.
Do you know there was like a 6 or 7 year span where Lavelle signed the Hawaii Football Player of the Year to come to BYU? Like 6 or 7 years in a row. And that rivalry became great because of that. We got over there. They hated us. We kept taking their guys.
Oh, yeah.
We took 4 All-Americans out of Henry's
they don't
class.
like it.
They don't like that.
It was awesome. But so Punahou, I highly recommend high school in Hawaii. My father and Coach Robinson were both regional representatives. The church came out with this regional representative program at the time when we were in Texas. And he kept asking, Coach Robinson, what does my son need to run in order to get a scholarship to BYU? And so every regional rep meeting, he would ask him, he said, well, he needs to run a 4:18 his junior year in high school. So I ran a 4:18, and I'll never forget the day Coach Robinson called me, our home in Hawaii, and offered me a half scholarship to run track at BYU. And that was my dream, because growing up in Dallas, there weren't very many LDS. And that was my dream. I did get offered from Stanford and Boise State and some other schools, but it wasn't even a second thought, wanting to come to BYU.
So you go on your mission, and there's a running story on your mission which really kind of sets you on course for greatness that came after what, about 1.5 years of not running at all?
So, at the time, I don't know if you remember this, Blaine, but at the time, they really discouraged the top athletes from going on missions.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit. It wasn't like they said, hey, don't go.
Right.
But...
it's okay if you don't, because you can do more good for the church.
Right. There was a lot of that conversation.
Giff Nielsen and I would always talk about, and we would hang out with Terry Bell, who was a sports writer. Do you remember Terry?
Yeah, I remember Terry.
At the sports editor daily. We can go through so much history. Anyway, but they encouraged me to go on one.
They said, you beat it.
I can't use you right now. Go on a mission.
I didn't letter my freshman year. Yeah. I didn't letter in cross. I didn't make the traveling squad in cross country. I was 1 spot away, and I missed lettering in track by 1 spot. I go on my mission. And well, Brazil, it took a long time to get our visas to go to Brazil.
Right.
So we spent 3 months in the mission training center here in Provo. And we go to the football games. They had a missionary section at the football games. And
Those were the
Rules
good
have
old
changed.
days.
Yeah,
Rules have
the
changed.
rules have changed. And I ran in the school turkey trot. And
As a missionary.
And I won the race. I had this LDS T-shirt on, and the next day in the Daily Universe, it had a picture of it with the caption, Elder Marsh, where's your companion?
Oh, man.
He wasn't at the finish line.
So I went a year went to Brazil, went a year without running a step and put on 25 pounds. I thought about this because when Rooks said he put on 25 pounds, it dawned on me, I wonder if that was beneficial to get out of shape and put the weight on and then take it back off. And I asked a trainer that last week, and he said, yes, because it builds your bone density and other things. And I thought it was pretty fascinating. Anyway, that's another topic.
So your body adapts to the extra 25 pounds, and then you come back and drop the 25 pounds, but your tendons and ligaments and bones are now strengthened by the extra 25. It's like running with a 25-pound weight vest on.
And I do know that the East Germany's, and we could talk forever about running behind communist China, East Germany and everything else. They had all of their top women get pregnant because they were better after they had a child.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, we got off topic, and I get off topic.
But you, in Brazil, you put on 25 pounds.
Put on 25 pounds. And then my last 6 months, we were out tracking in Belo Horizonte, and I run across this track club. And I asked my mission president, can I run with them? And he said yes. And so I started running with them and ran in the Brazilian club championships. And I came in second place at the Brazilian, and it was outside my mission. My mission president let me go. And those last 6 months. If I hadn't, I would, because I went to the Olympics 11 months later.
Did you drop the 25 you put on while you were running with the club?
Just about. I don't think I totally did. I came back and found out I had a worm, and I think that helped get it back off.
Yeah, that'll drop weight quick. That'll drop the weight like crazy.
But if he hadn't, I don't think I would, because that year, in March of 1976, my fastest steeplechase was 9 minutes and 25 seconds.
Wow.
That's March, April, May, June, July, August. 5 months later, I came in 10th in the Olympics and ran 8:23.9.
That's impossible. It's crazy.
It was a miraculous year, and if we had time, I could go through a lot of detail on it.
Before we have a couple of Olympic questions for you. But before we get to the Olympics, you come home in your first race, and you go get a great time. You qualify for the NCAAs. Then you go to the NCAAs and you qualify for the Olympics. Now you're on the plane ride home. You don't even have a scholarship. You're a walk-on. They didn't even give you a scholarship yet. And you run into Coach Robinson on the plane. Tell us about that.
I was on the plane after the NCAAs. I came in second in the NCAA. I was the top American. Back in my day, we had the world record holder in our race. I mean, that's when the Kenyans ran in the NCAA.
Right.
They weren't off that.
Yeah.
And so the NCAA record is set by Henry Rona, who I ran against. He ran 8:05 as a collegiate. So I'm a walk-on on the team because I'm a nobody. And the coach, after I came in second, Coach Robinson, who's one of my all-time favorite people, he pulled me and said, Henry, have you thought about the Olympics? And I said, who, me, Coach? The one who's not on scholarship? I got a full ride.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so.
You had a full ride before the plane landed?
Full ride before the plane landed. And 2 weeks later, made my first Olympic team, ran 8:27 again, and pinching myself and go to the Montreal Olympics where roommate with Bruce Jenner. Oh, I got to tell you about, you were talking about tight ends.
Yeah.
Everything brings up a story.
Right.
So Chris Smith is a really close friend of our famly. So I've done a lot of stuff with
Ty
Chris.
Detmer's tight end.
I did mention Chris.
You mentioned it. That's what made me think of it. So he's coming. He sat with us at BYU football games. And then Andrew George. Do you know who his father is?
Brother George.
Mr. George.
His name is Richard George. He was an Olympic javelin thrower. Richard and I made the Olympics.
What? I did know that. Andrew spent a lot of time at our home. He's a teammate of my oldest son, Kellen. Andrew can do the best.
So his dad threw the javelin?
His dad was an Olympian.
His dad, Richard, and I made the Olympic team the same day.
Yeah.
Wow.
I forgot Andrew's dad was an Olympian, but I did know
Richard
that.
George. And then he went off to Harvard MBA school and then moved to Colorado. But So all the tight end stories, I was thinking, oh, Gordon Hudson. When I was working at KSL, I was a sports reporter. That's why I love watching you guys and watching your, how you do things, because I had a blast with Paul James, if anybody remembers him.
Oh, everybody remembers
Paul James. And he wrote a story in Cougar Tales. If we had time, I'd tell you about it.
I got that book.
Oh, yeah. Well, go East Germany trip we took. It was a hoot.
Okay.
And then Steve Cyphers, Craig Bowlerjack, and Jim Nance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I was with Nance, and Nance would always say, if I'm not networked by 29, I'm out of this business. But that guy was phenomenal.
Yeah,
what a great guy. But anyway, so I got
all those
sidetracked.
guys great careers.
So what were we talking about?
So you're now on scholarship after. But I want to go back to the '76 Olympics in Montreal. Prior to your run, you notice there's this whole group of fans that are pulling for you.
Oh yeah,
which is a little bit crazy because you don't know anybody in Montreal. Like, what's the story behind that? Like, why are these people pulling for you?
I got to tell you, it's so cool to wear that USA jersey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a thrill. And so we go into Montreal, and the minute you walk in the opening ceremonies, USA walks in, everybody's going crazy. Well, I was the only American in the Olympic final in the steeplechase in '76, and so I didn't know anybody. My mom was there. My dad was mission president in Venezuela at the time, so he couldn't come. But my mom was there. And I heard all these people yelling for me, and it dawned on me. I said, I don't know anybody. And then I remembered. McDonald's had a promotion at the time where they gave out Olympic coupons that had an Olympic event on it. And if an American got a gold medal in an event you had a coupon for, you got a free Big Mac. And if they got a silver medal, you got shakes and fries. And
So
you got
they're
a
all
bromance.
behind the...
I knew that everybody had the steeplechase coupon, was rooting for me. So it put a lot of pressure on a young kid. But it's the same thing that Rooks went through today. It made you feel like, okay, I've been there.
Yeah.
And that's why he's going to do great things in the future. You've been there, but
So
yes,
you run, at those Olympics, you run the fastest time in U.S. history. You finished 10th at 8:23.99. And then Rooks today finishes 10th at the Worlds at 8:16.78.
8:20 today.
Right, 8:20 today. That's right. I've just said that. So 3 seconds apart after all these years.
Yeah. Here's what I'm told. And and I don't want this to sound like sour grapes or anything, because it's not. But I'm told the new technology in the shoes make 3 seconds a mile difference. I think Eyestone told me that.
Wow.
Really?
And so
Are they just bouncier? They give you more, like, so they give more what is that called?
They have
The
more
rebound
bounce. And so in the steeplechase, probably 6 seconds, these new shoes. I was up at the BYU Oregon game, and we went to the Nike store, and Danny Ainge was in there. So Danny and I were talking, and I was showing Danny these shoes. Danny went and bought a pair.
Oh, yeah.
He's still looking for speed.
But no, they make a huge difference. Doug Robinson wrote a story about it in Desert News you could read, but tremendous difference in the times. But
you mentioned Danny. Dave and I were thinking about back at our time when we were there, when we were at BYU, and you think through it. So you got Danny Ainge playing basketball. This is a team that's going to the Elite Eight with a bunch of NBA guys on that team. And Steve Trumbull wasn't an NBA guy, but he was the biggest star in Europe playing in Spain. So basketball's off the charts. Giff Nielsen, Mark Wilson, Jim McMahon is during that time that they're around. Elaine Michaelis and Courtney Leishman have Tina Gunn Robinson, who's an All-American and a Hall of Famer in basketball. Glenn Tuckett and Gary Pollins. They've got Morris and Dane Orge and Vance Law and all these guys on the baseball team. Corey Snyder and Wally Joyner.
my freshman year, Kreshmir Chosik.
Yeah, I was like, people ask me, "Whoa!" They go, "What in the world?" That was like Camelot back then for BYU. What was that like being at BYU during that time?
Okay, I got a question for you. And this I consider, maybe I'm biased, but maybe the greatest event in BYU sports history. And it was the 1984 Olympic trials. And you know what happened?
The 84 trials?
That was Fredericks?
84 Olympic trials.
No, Frankie's
US,
older
US,
than that.
No,
Younger
Frankie's
than that.
not U.S.
Okay.
U.S. Olympic trials. BYU athletes swept the distance races.
In the 84 Olympic trials?
Steeplechase, 5,000 meters, Doug Padilla. 10,000 meters, Paul Cummings.
Paul Cummings. Wow.
We won all the distance races won by BYU athletes in the 84 Olympic trials.
See, and I used to hang out with these guys because, you know, we didn't have that big of a training room, and the hot tub, the jacuzzi wasn't that big. And you know what? You could fit Doug Padilla, Paul Cummings, even Ed was skinny back in those days, and Henry. I could get in there with those. You could only put 2 offensive linemen in there, but you could sit in there with 5 track guys. So these were my guys.
What was it like? What was it like on campus with all those names and all those sports? But you know
something, back then, there wasn't the publicity. We didn't have Sports Nation. We didn't have the internet. Nobody knew who you were. I walked around campus. Nobody knew me.
I knew him. Let's correct that. I knew who
I was up at Orem High School. I didn't know. I didn't know either of you guys.
Catch this. 84 Olympics, people wanted to congratulate me. You know how they did it? Telegrams.
So you had telegrams.
84.
Yeah, that was
telegrams.
We didn't have cell phones in 84.
No.
We didn't even have live sports on ESPN until 84.
You know when people go, call me like this, and they do it like this? We didn't even have that.
Like that. Now it's just hang loose.
Hang loose. Okay, I got to tell you a couple. I know we don't have a lot of time. I got to tell you a couple stories from football stories. So after the Miracle Bowl, who was the nose tackle for SMU?
Reuben Carter.
No. But
Michael Carter.
Michael Carter.
Yeah, Michael Carter.
Is
that crazy? I remember that.
Michael Carter.
That is a little crazy.
He's Olympic disc and shot putter.
He made the U.S. It wasn't the Olympic team I was with him, but one of the national teams. And I saw dawned on me, go, Michael, Holiday Bowl, and he just goes, "Shut up."
Yeah, he was one of the top.
With Michael, if he says "shut up,"
the shot put was his forte, right? He's one of the top shot putters in the world, right?
Yeah.
Playing nose. I remember when he was playing for them back in those days.
Okay, so I'll give another quick story. I'm thinking of some stories. So I'm working at KSL and I'm doing reports and I'm going to interviewing athletes and everything else. So I'm supposed to interview Bosco.
Yeah.
I come down to BYU. He runs away. He's running through the locker rooms trying to get away because he didn't want to get interviewed.
Yeah, Robbie didn't love to be interviewed. We had him on the show for like an hour.
Yeah, he's changed his tune now.
And then you had, and I think I told you about this one, Steve Young and Jim Nance were doing a pregame. I forget what game it was. It was around that 84, 85 time. It was a big game. They're down the field doing the pregame.
Yeah, they went down on the field and did it. I remember this.
I'm working at KSL at the time. I'm up in the booth. I'm doing all the stats and everything. Mm-hmm. And so the game starts and they're nowhere. They're stuck in the elevator. And I got a live mic in front of me and they're stuck and the game started. And I was going, should I do it? Should I do it?
And you know you want to do it.
I know I wanted to. On the screen that said audio difficulties. And Spence Kennard comes up. He was the boss at the time. Yeah. He comes up and he starts calling the game.
Yeah, well, Spence was the voice of music and spoken word at that time.
Right.
Good man.
Yeah, he's the one that hired.
Those guys got stuck in the elevator.
He's the one that hired. They got stuck in the elevator, and I'm up there with a live mic doing stats and stuff. But at the time, that was back in the days of Bill Marcroft.
Yeah. And Marcroft and Paul James and that whole crew.
Marcroft.
Legends.
He pushed me hard to go to Channel 2 to work with him. But, I'm loyal.
You made the right decision.
He's a KSL guy. It's you talk about Kresimir Chosic and all these people that we just mentioned. There's been some tremendous athletes to come through BYU over the years, and you've witnessed it all. You were there for a big time. You witnessed it all. Who's the greatest athlete in BYU history?
Danny Ainge.
You think Danny's the greatest?
Danny's amazing.
Yeah.
I loved your interview with him too. I went back.
So fun.
I didn't know about the Wise Guys, and what a great name. But so I've gone back and looked at interviews, and Tom Homo was phenomenal. Danny Ainge was phenomenal. But here's somebody else that I went to school with. Alema Harrington.
Punaho.
Yeah. He was a little kid on the track team. He was on the JV track team when I was running.
Alema was running track?
Yeah. And his dad, was famous, Al.
Oh, yeah.
Al Harrington, the South Pacific man.
He would show up sometimes at the track. So
Al played Ben Kakua on Hawaii 5-0 on the old series, their dad. And then he had down on Lure Street in the Polynesian Palace. He had a show that ran for years there. One of those famous people in the islands.
We've had Alema on the show.
Yeah, Alema's been on with us. And I just saw Tao, his brother, the other day at the scrimmage.
Yeah. So Alema and I go way back to Punaho, and he was just a little runt on the JV track team back then.
1981, you are the #1 steeplechase runner in the world. What does it feel like to be the best in the world at something?
You know, it's so bizarre to me because in 1976, we're going to the Mount Sac Relays, and I'm next on a bus I'm next to Jay Sylvester. Jay Sylvester at one time held the world record in the discus. He was an Olympic medalist.
L.J. Sylvester.
L.J. Sylvester. And I asked LJ, because I'm a walk-on nobody, what's it like to be number one in the world? I asked him that.
Yeah.
Because it was mind-boggling.
What did he say?
Mind-boggling to me. And I don't even remember his answer so much as I was just so stunned to think about it. And then there was one year, 1985 more than 1981, I knew there was nobody on the planet that could beat me. I went undefeated that year, set the American record, ran my sub 4-minute mile and everything else. And it was just bizarre. It's the most bizarre feeling.
Did you ever just step back and go, I'm the fastest person in the world at this distance? And
this year anyway.
Yeah, I mean, but did you actually step back out of yourself and go, that's crazy?
No, I pinched myself. And I can promise you this, and I won't try to get too spiritual right now, but there was a hand in my life, my whole life.
You're allowed to get spiritual on this show.
Okay. When I was one, I was at my grandfather's house who had shingles. My mom was cooking for him. I go in the backyard. I fall in his fish pond. He lived up in Federal Heights in Salt Lake. Something prompted him to get out of bed and go in the backyard. He pulled me out and saved my life, mouth-to-mouth. They did resuscitation. I was given a blessing by his home teachers, Spencer Kimball and Harold B. Lee.
Oh, wow. That was his home teachers?
He was in the 12.
Yeah.
And I was given a blessing at that time. And I was a blue baby, and I look back, and I see so many things in my life where it wasn't me. You know, things, and the hand of the Lord has been in my life so much. And I see it in Ken's life. Yeah. You know, and we, a lot of times, we just don't recognize it. But when you get older and you look back, you see it a lot more. And Coach Robinson, before the 76 Olympics, he took me to the church office building and had them give me a blessing.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a lot. It was a miraculous year, but my dad had all the missionaries praying for me all that year because he's mission president of Venezuela. Yeah.
To make the Olympics, 9 months removed from a mission.
Yeah.
And we see athletes come now, and Kalani's figured it out that if an athlete comes home in the summer, he's not playing in the fall because of a hamstring or a knee. They get hurt, and so they try to give them a year to get their body back, and then they come charging back. But you go right to the Olympics. You
know, it's different sports. Yeah, I'm sure it's different adaptation. And I had, as I said, I don't know why I was given that opportunity to run in Brazil. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have made the Olympics that year. And so I had some preparation. And a lot of things happened that year. I changed my foot strike. I changed my hurdling techniques, improved them, my running style. And a lot of things that happened that would not have happened if I hadn't gone on a mission. And so I just, I count my blessings. I still don't comprehend it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm Joe. Ordinary Joe.
Yeah, he's never been that.
I don't comprehend it. I was a nobody on BYU's team my freshman year. They didn't even give me a scholarship my second year, and to have that happen, I still blows my mind. I don't understand it.
BYU Hall of Fame runner Henry Marsh on the Wise Guys tonight in our Provo studio, 261 miles from his home in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Right. Unbelievable.
So
wait. My granddaughter had a tennis match.
I know you were down.
But it got canceled because of the rain.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So how many miles do you think you've run over the course of your life?
See, one of the reasons I ran for so long, I was 13 years straight in the top 10 in the world. And it was because I was and everybody laughed at my workouts. Because I heard you somebody interviewed Ken Rooks, and he said he does about 70 miles. I did like 55 miles a week. Which is very low but I was very specific. I had some great mentors. My coach was Bill Bowerman, and we could talk a lot about Bill Bowerman, and I knew Phil Knight because Nike was handing shoes out the back of a car back then.
Right.
So I've sat with Phil Knight at basketball games, and he was a big track athlete, and Bowerman, it would make my shoes, and that's a whole nother story we could talk about sometime. But how did I get off on that?
We're talking about how many miles you've run in your life.
Also, Bowerman was, he had the sage advice. At the time, I didn't understand it, but now I totally understand it. He said, after every workout, you should feel like you could do a little bit more. And it kept you from breaking down. And he was very modern in his approach. He was very big on date, goal, pace, and those sort of things. And so because I was a lower mileage, I'm a heavier set person and very specific. Bowerman said, he would say, Henry, don't run hills. I've never seen a hill on a track.
and he's talking about position-specific training, right?
Yeah. And so, like, we wouldn't weight lift. Why would I want to put on, build more pecs and have arms like, this guy here? Because it doesn't help my run.
Old guy arms.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help you run faster. And it's excess weight. So we were very specific. Long run Monday, distance intervals Tuesday, light Wednesday, speed Thursday, light Friday, race simulation Saturday, and I always took Sunday off. And I did 6 days a week, 11 months out of the year, 2 workouts a day, and I tell people I never missed.
So I did 6 days a week, 2 workouts a day for how many straight years?
Oh, I was 13 years in the top 10 in the world.
Well, that's how you.
That was after college.
That's how you get the top in the world, and most people won't do that.
It's doing ordinary things consistently that give you extraordinary results. It's that simple.
I gotta write that down. Say that again, because that is something to live by. So doing ordinary things
consistently over time give you extraordinary results, and that's the habits we form.
Yeah.
And you can apply it to anything in life. But
I love that.
I did ordinary workouts. There's guys that would do. Paul, the coach up at Weber State now, Paul Pilkington was on the national team in marathon and stuff. I go work out with Weber State. I'd only do it twice a week because their workouts were so hard. I do my workout and then he kept going, And so they laughed at my workouts, but it was the right thing for me, and it created longevity.
It worked out.
And the number of miles and all that's really specific. Like I'm trying to remember the guys that we were around back in those days. Like I think Doug Padilla probably didn't do as many miles and did a little more speed work. Ed Eyestone could run forever and just run people into the ground, and he did the high mileage. 2 different things, similar results, right?
Doug was my training partner. Doug, I owe so much to. Doug is one of the most amazing people in the world. We traveled Europe together every year. We've traveled the world together. I could give you so many Doug Padilla stories. When the KGB was chasing us in Moscow, when we got called up on a flight from Sydney to LA because Doug had run an extension cord from our 8-track player into the laboratory. And the pilot wanted to talk to us about it. I mean, we have so many stories. And he was with me when Paul James, we were competing in Karl Marxstadt against the East Germans. We had to go through Checkpoint Charlie. But I'm thinking about just one thing and then I'll shut up. But that is my favorite race of all time was 1979 Spartakiad in Russia. It's the only time they let Western athletes in the Russian national championship because they're getting ready for the 80 Olympics.
Yeah.
And
of which they were.
We boycotted.
We boycotted.
And at the time, I was on the chair of the Athletes Advisory Council on the U.S. Olympic Committee. I controlled 20% of the vote. I was flown to the White House. Sabrinsky was trying to persuade me to get the athletes to vote to. It's a whole nother story. But so in that race, I won the race. And afterwards, I went up in Lenin Stadium in the heart of Moscow in the midst of the Cold War, and they played our national anthem. And it still gives me chills.
Maybe for the first time.
Probably the only time.
Probably the only
We did go back for the Goodwill Games. I sat with Ted Turner in the stands, and I think that was 83. But so, I mean, you appreciate what we have, and it's so sad what's going on in this country right now because people don't appreciate what we have. And you go behind the Iron Curtain, you appreciate. I had athletes try to defect. I had one guy, Margaret Garber in Koblenz. Every year he'd come up to me in the warm-up area as a steeplechaser. He had the Statue of Liberty in his hand and go to his heart. Every year he'd come to me and do that. And we had one guy, one of the discus throwers from Germany. He was a gold medalist. Wolfgang Schmidt, I think was his name. And he had showed too many Western tendencies with our athletes, and they put him on a potato farm to pick potatoes. The Russian athletes, when I was competing in the Spartakiad, we were under the Olympic Stadium. They would talk to me. As soon as we got in public, they couldn't be seen.
Nothing else.
Communicating with me. you just don't realize what we have in this country until you've experienced that.
Till you get outside of it. I was telling Dave, we were in Croatia just like last month, and people forget that Croatia was under communist rule until 1996. They won the Serb-Croatian War and became part of NATO. And I was really taken back at how pro-American and how grateful they were for their individual freedom. And they just really, really valued it and really were grateful for it, their opportunity to be free. And I agree with you. I think sometimes we take that for granted here.
Absolutely.
You know, we don't understand what it took, the prices that were paid to provide that. And you got that. You got to see that firsthand by being on the international scene and competing with athletes that didn't have those same freedoms.
Yeah.
Couple more questions for the great Henry Marsh, and then we're going to hit you up with 5 questions you're not prepared for. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
coming
all
up.
right.
But BYU is now in the Big 12, and the running program is Big 12 ready. The athletic department, which you followed since you participated in it and was a fan before as a kid growing up, but how excited are you for Big 12 competition across the board for BYU?
Oh, I'm so excited. I got to tell you something. My daughter was a cheerleader at BYU for 3 years, and I had 2 boys that played tennis at BYU. We've done endowed scholarships. We got 4 endowed family scholarships for BYU, 2 track, 1 tennis, 1 cheerleading.
Nice.
We're BYU family. And when my daughter was cheerleader, I would go to the games. She would travel. So I've been to Notre Dame, Mississippi,
Fun stuff.
TCU when David Nixon played.
Yeah.
I was at that game. Just name it, go down the list. And it was so much fun. So it was in independence and traveling like that is kind of how I anticipate. We've already got, we're taking 9 of us, my sons and grandsons, to the Kansas game, the first one.
Good.
We've already got our tickets.
It's going to be Jets
That could be a
flying
lot
over
of
there.
that could be a lot of points in that game.
So we've already got our tickets for that
Nice.
one. We're going to stay and go to the Kansas City game the next day.
Good.
Go see the Chiefs. And
Go see
Andy.
the Chiefs. I'm sorry about Sabbath day, but anyway.
Hey, sometimes the ox is in the mire. Or Andy's team's playing.
Yeah. So, but it's part of the family.
Yeah.
And I have good friends at those. I have a very close friend who's a big Oklahoma State booster, so we've already started talking. And to have the Arizona schools back in Colorado and Utah.
Yeah, that's tradition.
There are a lot of people that are saying, oh, I hope they don't let Utah. I said, no, let Utah in. That's what this is all about. Sports is about, the competition.
Yeah.
It's not, you want to win, but if you lose, it's not the end of the day. It's the competition, it's the excitement, it's the striving. And people lose sight of that. And that's what's sad, but the sporting event is, amazing. I'll never forget Andrew George,
Dennis was talking about that play with Andrew in overtime. right?
Overtime, and the best part about it was the 2 Utah defenders hit each other.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about the
So
Big 12.
how do you think they'll do? How do you think football
What
will
be
do?
football is the big one that everybody's looking at. How do you think they're going to do this first year?
Something? Look at their Power 5 record. And that's probably indicative.
Well, you talk about their Pac-12 championship 2 years ago?
Well, that one. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they won, they went 4-5, in the Big 12
In
this
the Big
year.
12?
Yeah.
And so maybe a couple of wins early. You think you can get to 6, 7 wins?
But they could, because the games will be close.
Yeah.
And it's if the ball bounces the right way. And I've seen it bounce the right way, I think, the Mississippi game, who was it that intercepted a pass or fumble?
Kyle Van Noy caused the fumble and then recovered it to
recovered
win the game.
it, and then he did it against San Diego State. And, you have a play that makes it. It's like when we did the Hail Mary against Nebraska or Boise State, the Miracle Bowl.
Yeah.
You just, the games will be so close that they're going to be won or lost on a couple of plays, just like TCU last year.
Yeah.
And so you could easily be 7. You could easily get 7 wins this year.
Even 8.
Even 8, if the ball bounces the right way, or it could be 4 or 5,
Our over-under that we've set as a show is 7. We've said 7's a reasonable amount. And that doesn't mean they're not going to go win 6 or 5 or 8 or 9, but we feel like 7's a good spot. And if they win 7 this first year, that'd be good in this transition.
I agree.
year. So that's our over-under that we've set is 7.
I agree.
So
Yeah, 7's a very good year for them this year.
Yep.
Let's finish with this one before Blaine gets after you for 5 quick ones.
I'll give you the 5 quick ones.
As an expert, and you are an expert on this one, in what ways is running the steeplechase a metaphor for life?
You know, that's a great question. And I love that question because I always looked at the barriers as opportunities. In life, we all have barriers. And there's the people who look at them as opportunities rather than challenges that succeed. And so the barriers gave me the advantage. And if you want to go into detail, I ran my flat race, flat 3,000 without any barriers, was 20 seconds faster than my steeplechase time. Everybody else is 30 or 40 seconds. So I use the barriers as opportunity, as my advantage. And in life, it's that way. We're here in life to have troubles and challenges and strifes and fall down. But it's the people that look at that as, oh yeah, that's cool. That's why I'm here. Guess what? I've just learned from that, rather than, oh man, I'm horrible. And if it's like, next time something bad happens to you, it's like, yes, I get to learn another lesson, because we lose the big picture. What's the big picture of life? The big picture of life is we came down here to experience. And you only know what you experience in life. My dad used to say, you're the sum total of your experiences.
Right.
And it's about the experience you have in life. And the more experience, I have a special needs son. If I didn't have that special needs son, I wouldn't have empathy like I do for special needs kids. Right. But I experienced it. And so the challenges we have, the more challenges, the more experience, man, the better off we are. And so the steeplechase, and we look at that as an opportunity, as an advantage, rather than a setback, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Well said by Wrong Way Marsh.
Henry's got me, wrong way back in 6th grade.
Wrong Way Marsh.
Has been wrong way since 6th grade.
Wrong Way Marsh.
I've got a whole page of quotes from Henry Marsh right now that I'm loving. I'm loving it.
Let's get to the brass taxes here. Let's find out something about Henry Marsh.
These are 5 questions. You're not allowed to even think about it. You just answer what comes to your head.
Okay.
So your favorite sports movie?
It's easy. It's the one I'm in.
Oh, what's
16 Days of Glory.
Oh my gosh. That's
Bud Greenspan did all the Fish Olympic movies. After the 83 Worlds.
I forgot about that.
83 Worlds where I hit the last barrier. He came up to me after that race and he said, Henry, you're going to be part of the 84 Olympic film. He told me in 83 I was going to be part of it. He didn't know that in 84 Olympics I was going to collapse at the end of the race and be carried off on a stretcher and everything else. And then I went on tour with him. We were showing the movie because Peter Vidmar's in there, who's a very close friend. Opening ceremonies 84. We were next to Mary Lou, and she had
Mary Lou Retton.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so so I went on tour with him, and he was always, you had to have the highs and the lows. Mine was the low, and the highs, to balance it out.
The contrast to the movie, right?
Exactly.
So 16 Days of Glory. Hey, everybody out there and out following, make sure you go see 16 Days of Glory.
But my favorite football films, and it was before this all happened this last week, but Blindside.
Oh, yeah, I like the Blindside.
Sandra Bullock was amazing.
And Tim McGraw. Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw, right?
Yeah.
Brenda loves Tim McGraw. That's like... That's okay. She can love Tim.
My wife's like, Tim McGraw's not an actor. And I go, there he is right there.
He's right there.
Oh,
I love that story, that movie.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock is phenomenal.
Yeah, all that movie.
So 16 Days of Glory starring
Part 2.
Henry Marsh.
It's 16 Days. He did two
Part
movies.
2.
Yeah, Part 2.
Part 2.
I love it. Favorite singer or band?
So favorite singer or band?
By the way, we just posted 16 Days of Glory on our YouTube site.
Thanks for that, Jack. Way to go, buddy.
Well, the one that I've seen the most in concert would be Elton John.
Oh, has anybody said Elton John yet?
No, I don't think so. I saw Elton John at the Marriott Center, the I'm Still Standing tour, back when concerts would come through.
I've seen him in LA Coliseum with what's his name? That did Layla.
Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton. So with Eric Clapton, then he was with...
Don't Mess With Me, I'm Music Man.
And then he was at the Delta Center with Billy Joel. Wow. And then I've seen him in Caesar's Palace. Oh, yeah. But he's amazing. So
Elton John is awesome.
I probably have to go with Elton.
That's a great one.
I saw a Caesar show, too. That was fantastic. Yeah. The Red Piano, I think it was.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. But all those guys, Journey and all the ones back in those days, Heart.
Classics.
And
they're great. So, okay, your favorite breakfast cereal?
Well, my mom growing up gave us whole wheat mush.
Oh, no.
No, excuse me. Indian mush.
Indian mush?
My mom was a nutrition expert.
But you didn't like it?
I did like it. It was like the kernels of wheat, not broken up, but the whole kernel, and it's called Indian mush. And
There are horror stories
what?
made of that.
That's how you become number one in the world.
But she'd make it with honey.
You eat Indian mush with honey.
And stuff. Oh, my mom, she was phenomenal. And, her dad was in the first presidency. So she was raised pretty well. But she would make this. We did a science experiment, my older brother, 6th grade in Dallas. And she took mice and she gave one group of mice just milk, another one just wheat, another one wheat and milk. And then my brother had to weigh them every day and feed them and see how their health went. He won all of Dallas Science Fair with that.
Who won? Who gained the most weight?
Well, here's the thing. The one that was supposed to gain the most weight
Should have been milk and wheat.
was pregnant.
That skews the results.
That messed up.
So you're going with Indian mush?
Indian mush, yeah.
We've had 64 podcasts, and we've never had that one.
That makes Kyle Van Noy feeding his children protein smoothies for breakfast
Indian
not
mush.
sound that bad.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this one for shows.
Indian
Indian
mush. I'm gonna have to
Indian
try
mush.
it.
All right.
Your favorite place to run in the world? Because you've run all over the world.
Well, Priest Trails in Eugene's the first thing because I went to law school, in Eugene.
Right.
And in the 80, I was in law school during the 80 Olympic trials. And I was the only American that broke an American record in the 80 Olympic trials and got the outstanding male performer of the 80 Olympic trials over Carl Lewis, all of them. And I was in law school that week. Anyway, I don't know why I thought that. But Priest Trails.
That makes you the fastest attorney known to man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about that. Frank Shorter was an attorney. He was pretty good. Priest Trails, and then all the trails over in Europe. Sweden, outside the Olympic Stadium in Sweden, where we do warm-ups and these beautiful trails. But I love the sawdust, the wood bark trails in the forest.
You love running those. Are you still running?
I'm having knee surgery next month with a knee replacement. That's why I put on the weight. And when I turned 60, I ran a 5:13 mile.
Oh my goodness!
And then when I was 50, I ran a 5-minute mile. And my surgeon's John Edwards, LaVelle Edwards' son.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so he says, Henry, you got grade 3. And he was on the track team with me.
Right. I remember John being on.
He said, you got grade 3 arthritis. No more running. The worst day of my life. He said at 50, he said, no more running.
Think how many miles are on those
Hey, do you want to know?
knees?
John gives a lot of people bad news because I almost tore my Achilles, and I went in to see John, and he looked at my Achilles, and they did an MRI and stuff. He goes, man, he goes, you're very close to blowing this Achilles out. Like some of these strands are, he's like, so I need you to do something for me. Could you take out your license? I'm like, okay. I take out my license. He goes, what year is on your license? And I said, 1963. He goes, okay. Now I want you to take today's year, and I want you to subtract 1963 from that. And I go, okay. And he goes, if it's over 35, I need you to stop playing church basketball.
Oh,
I'm like,
basketball.
He's like,
church
you are going to
basketball.
blow your Achilles out playing church basketball, and you
basketball.
need to stop it.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I stopped playing basketball because John made me. He making you stop running?
Aging's not fun. That's why I'm very
know
reflective
what?
these days.
Don't listen to
But
him.
they said, I told the doctor.
Get a new knee and you can run on
I
it.
said, that's what I asked him. He said 2 days a week.
Yeah. Just have to be a little lighter on it.
Spencer wants to know if you've ever hiked Spencer's Butte in Eugene.
Ooh, I have not hiked it, but I know of it.
Okay, all right. That one's
So
important.
his dad was
ran
born
all
and
over
raised in
Eugene.
Eugene, and he loved
All
that
over
hike.
Eugene, yeah.
So here's the last of the big 5 questions.
By the way, in law school, I did my 3rd year at BYU Law School, and with Rex Lee. Rex Lee and I became very close friends.
Yeah.
He's the one that got me into BYU my 3rd year. 1981, I was number 1 in the world that year, 81.
81.
And when he became Solicitor General, went back to the mall, and he is one of my all-time favorites.
That is great. Great man.
So your favorite BYU moment?
Man, you guys are so many memories. A favorite.
You got to pick out a favorite. You picked out picked
favorite
the best
BYU
athlete.
moment?
We asked you the best athlete in history, and like, bam, Danny Ainge. So now you got to come up with a favorite.
And I'm
moment.
still struck on Indian mush, so
Indian
I'm
mush.
eager to hear
Yeah.
this.
Mush
Okay,
blew
when you
me
say
away.
favorite
BYU moment. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be. It can be any BYU moment you've ever had, and it doesn't even have to be in track and field.
I guess when I met my first wife.
That was the best moment. Was it in class?
No, her father lined us up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was head of Bookcraft Books, and and he showed me a picture of her. I said, well, why don't you line us up? And we both lived in Riviera Apartments.
Riviera.
The Riviera.
Yeah,
the legend of the Riv.
The Riv.
Yeah,
So.
that's good. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here and being able to spend so much time with us.
I loved it. You guys have the most fun of anybody.
Well, it's kind of cool because we're just on with a live stream and fans from all over the world get a kind of, that's all they get, right? If you're in Columbia, you're not getting BYU stuff on the evening news.
And we love that we had this brainstorm with Jack and who is our producer and partner and
DJ's over there.
DJ over there that we could do something different than was being done out there. And there was this new format with live stream that we could repurpose as a podcast, and people go watch it all week long and go back like you did and watch the Danny Ainge review, go all the way back and watch Marie Osmond come on with whatever it is. But you don't get to sit down and just visit with people for 45 minutes or an hour like we get to.
Yeah.
And really get into stories and get to know people. We've done TV our whole lives, and a 4-minute segment on a TV is a long piece. Right, so we do series of sound bites when we work in television. It's not quite as fulfilling as sitting down and being able to do this. We love it, and we're having a lot of fun with it.
Well, I feel very selfish being able to talk about myself and things that I've done.
Well, that's why you're here.
That's why
talk
you're
about
here.
yourself.
That's why
But
we've got you here.
And it's been so long. But I admire you guys. It's so much fun watching. I watch Sports Nation every day.
Good.
I'm usually working out.
Yeah.
Did you watch it today? Because I was on today.
I haven't watched today's yet.
Today's a good show.
I have it recorded.
I previewed the offense for this fall.
I was watching the World Championships.
Yeah, Nixon. Oh, that's okay.
The World Championships came on at 10:30.
Nixon and I were on today. I previewed the offense.
Kalani was on.
I did watch after further review though.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a fun show today.
I've watched that one.
Yeah.
So.
But I'll watch Sports Nation.
Look, you're
tomorrow,
on the Mount Rushmore of BYU track and field.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you.
And we love how you represent the Y, and you've been friends with our dads, and now you're friends
That's
with
true.
us.
And his parents are awesome. They would host people at the Marriage Center.
They just love being able to interact with everybody.
But they're great people. They're great people.
thank
Your dad, I didn't know your dad as well as I got to know his parents.
Right.
Yeah.
But I knew your dad back there. And,
Well, both of our folks are part of the fabric of BYU over the years,
It's
which we're
family.
really
It's
proud
part
of. We're really proud of.
BYU's family.
Yeah.
And I got my oldest granddaughter going to BYU now.
Oh my God.
You're too young to have a granddaughter.
She's
at
going to
BYU.
That's
BYU and
amazing.
she's amazing.
That's great.
The great Henry Marsh on the Wise Guys. Now you can go to the Wise Guys and watch the Henry Marsh
Yeah,
interview.
it'll be in there.
We need to get this show more publicized. I didn't even know about it.
It's
Yeah,
going.
it's growing like crazy.
How do you publicize it?
And we're
working
one of
on
the things we wanted to do was we wanted to put a year in the books and figure out what we're doing. And now we got a great format. We know what we're doing.
Ahead of
and
the Big 12.
Now we're just going into the Big 12, and we're ready to really promote the heck out of it and really have it grow.
Yeah.
It's actually grown at a phenomenal rate compared to other podcasts, but we're ready to put our foot on the gas pedal. and really
You guys
go
do a
with this
great
thing.
job. I admire what you
So,
do. So thank you for letting me be part of it.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Henry.
And to have a safe drive back.
So, and look, 35 years, will you let me come back?
Absolutely. Love
Of course,
it, brother.
we'll verify some of those stories. It might take us a while. But drive back, don't run back, and good luck with the new
Well, I'm
search.
staying in Salt Lake tonight.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll let you run.
Okay.
And
Thanks
we'll
so
wrap
much,
this thing
guys.
up.
That's the great
Hey, I'm
Henry Marsh.
going to use one of Henry's quotes for our quote of the day. I'm not even going to use the one that we had. I'm going to use Henry's for this. So,
All right.
thanks, brother.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Good to see you.